Hey up, dudes, how's it going? Using some American parlance now. The Trump impeachment's going ahead. Yeah, straight on the BBC today. Pelosi also lost a rag during a heated exchange with a reporter. That was pretty funny.
Do you hate the president, Madam Speaker?
I don't hate anybody. I don't have was raised in a Catholic house. You don't hate anybody. Not anybody in the world.
Yeah, course you fucking don't. Course you don't, love. It hasn't been painfully obvious for the last 3 years that you'd like to claw Trump's balls off with your bare hands. It's laughable to me that in the United States, I mean, they all do this, Republican and Democrat alike. They think that instantly just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm religious," makes you a good person. And I think we can all agree that it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Christian or Jew, being a man of God doesn't prove anything. That's why there's loads of extremely famous instances like Ted Haggard, that Baptist preacher guy who was always going on about gay sex and drugs, and then he got caught sniffing coke off a rent boy's cock. It's not really a guarantee of anything, is it? And I'm sure Osama bin Laden was a fucking man of God as well. Anyway, it was a foregone conclusion from the start, wasn't it? We all knew it. It stood out like a Christmas tree in no man's land. We knew for a fucking fact that this was happening. They tried to pretend that there was some sort of like discussion to be had, but anyone with half a brain knows for a fact that they wanted to do this the day he won the fucking presidency. The same day. They were all there going, right, we're going to impeach the fucker. It was a foregone conclusion. And I've made my my opinion on this quite clear. I didn't vote for Trump, and I certainly wouldn't have voted for Trump even if I was allowed at the time. But the more it's gone on, the more they've made me defend the fucking guy. They've basically twisted my arm up my back and made me defend him, because what they're doing is obscene to anyone. And as a recent immigrant to this country who's done his homework with regards to the founding of the fucking place, it's obscene to anyone that's got some regard for what the founding fathers intended for this fucking nation. Rather than riff on it, I'll simply read out a response that I've recently typed out to a buddy of mine. He was there saying, Jonathan Turley's testimony was ridiculous and it didn't make any sense. And I responded. I thought his testimony was decent. At least he talked about trying to bring the nation back together. At the end of the day, America is too partisan and people are nuts. Clinton shouldn't have gotten impeached, let alone Trump, for this. They wanted him for Russia, and when they couldn't prove it, they came up with this nonsense. I stand by that. At the end of the day, let's be honest, Clinton shouldn't have got impeached. Clinton got impeached for lying. Like, that's it. There was no real sin against America. The impeachment itself was for lying, because they all take oaths not to lie. And then he said he didn't get his cock sucked by an intern when he did. That's not an impeachable offence. I'm sorry if you're rabidly partisan Republican, but think of it this way. Every single politician on Capitol Hill, every single one of them, regardless of party, colour or creed, every single one of them lies. You have to lie to be an effective politician. They all lie. Reagan lied, Obama lied, Clinton lied, Bush lied. It's in your fucking job description. That's why everybody trusts politicians about as much as they do. A kleptomaniac lawyer with a gambling addiction. Nobody trusts them because they lie. I'm sorry, but simply telling a lie is not an impeachable offence, because if that was fucking true, no president in American history would have got through their term without getting impeached. Lying's not enough. It's ridiculously infantile to pretend, when we all know the facts, that our politicians are moral and they don't tell lies. There's also, you could even make a moral claim for lying when you're a politician, right? At the end of the day, you need to do it. Like, you can't just, if you have utter scorn and contempt and hatred for like your Chinese counterpart or your Russian counterpart, you have to be diplomatic. If you didn't, we'd be at war 365 days a year. So there's almost a moral case to be made for lying if you're a politician. Not about like personal vice. Obviously you shouldn't be, muffing crack rocks out of a hooker's arse, but at least be aware of the fact that you're probably going to have to do a bit of lying, a bit of weasel words, a bit of sweet talking to people you don't like. It's part of the job description if you're a politician. So I'm sorry, I don't think Clinton should have got impeached for lying about a blowjob. Fucking hell, what bloke wouldn't? It's very rare that a man's wife goes, did you get your cock sucked off an intern? And you go, yep, fucking quality. She could suck a golf ball through a garden hose, that gal. At the same time, impeaching Trump for this is ridiculous. At the end of the day, what went on was Biden was dodgy as fuck. Everybody knows that, right? Is there anybody going to listen to me and go, nah, totally fine what Biden did? Really? For reference, see this excellent article in The Atlantic, another liberal publication, right? You guys know they're the only ones I use. It said, Donald Trump committed an impeachable offence, but prominent Americans shouldn't be leveraging their names for payoffs from shady clients. Listen, that was dodgy as fuck. Hunter Biden is a piece of shit. He weaseled his way to the Navy because his dad backdoored him in, and then he was caught doing coke 3 fucking weeks later. It's like, the guy is a wanker. He was shagging his wife's widow, going behind her back and knocked up some 27-year-old fucking hot netball player or something. He is just a shit bloke. A walking toilet. A fucking oxygen thief of the highest order. We can all agree on that, right? Even if you're a Democrat. He's a piece of shit. Even if you're a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, if your sister brought him home, you wouldn't go, fucking nice one, he's a good guy. He's a fucking cunt. Anyway, I'll link the article. Read the fucking thing. It's extremely succinct and carefully lays it out. The shortest version I can give you is mine. But essentially, this is what our politicians do. They launder public money through other entities so they can scratch the backs of friends and family members. But that's public money. So his son, with no experience at all, got handed a job, getting paid fucking 80 grand a month or 50 grand a month or whatever it was. I keep reading different figures. Obscene amount of money, like what normal people earn in a year, he was getting in a month. And all that money was from the US taxpayers. It was given to Ukraine and then funneled to him through that fucking company. There's also a good timeline of all this on Just Security. So you had your political revolution in 2013. The pro-Russian government fell. We had an invasion. Then Hunter Biden joined the Ukrainian firm Burisma. Why? Have you seen his background? He joined Burisma to get fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars of free money off the taxpayer. That's why he joined Burisma. So don't tell me that's totally legit and fair and nobody cares. Even if you're on the far left, you should see that and go, that makes me sick. That's just millionaire oligarchs like Biden using their positions to funnel taxpayers' money to their own family. Fuck Hunter Biden and his creepy sniff your fingers, chew your wife's hand while she's giving a speech.
The United States!
The fuck is that all about? If he's not sniffing people's hair or fucking massaging them, he's chewing people's fingers. Anyway, Biden, absolute weirdo, just endemic, as it says in the Atlantic article, of the corruption and nepotism and cronyism practiced on Capitol Hill. So, when Trump said, look into this, is there something to look into? Yes, he might have something to gain from it because he just happens to be possibly one of the Democratic frontrunners. I don't think he's going to get the nomination, to be honest. But, yeah, he's got a motive to see him get fucked, he has. But it was dodgy. Ultimately, what did he do? He told them to look into Ukraine, and they should do that anyway, because they said they were going to get tough on corruption. And then he held the aid up for a little bit, and then they got the aid. Apparently there was 5 more meetings, and they've got the minutes from these meetings, and they documented them all, and it didn't come up again. There was no leaning, there was no pressure, and both the Ukrainian president and the American president have said, of course it wasn't quid pro quo, it was just like, hey, you should look into this because it's dodgy. It fucking was dodgy. And ultimately, even if all the stuff the Dems said was true and he really did lean on them and say, you better do this or we shouldn't, or we're not going to give you the aid, even then in my eyes, he'd still have the remit to do it because it was dodgy as fuck. And if we've promised to sort out corruption in Ukraine, one of the most corrupt countries on earth, it's not that big a deal to ask the president to look into it. Just because he happened to, probably enjoy the fact that they could possibly get the chance to fuck Biden over doesn't mean the request was out of order or illogical. It wasn't. And it's not like shit, that doesn't happen all the time. What about when they weaponized the IRS? Remember that one? That was way more dodgy than any of this shit. Because that led to, conservative groups were aggressively attacked by the IRS, like as if the branches of government and everything that's to do with this country, which was set up by the founding fathers to make it functional, so no one person could have too much power. You're basically weaponizing federal entities to go after people that you don't like in a partisan fashion. It's obscene. So the fact that the IRS targeting controversy, and there's a dozen other I could name, never ended up in any major convictions for anyone in a position of power. They always have a fall guy. It's a bit ridiculous to suggest that Trump needs to be hauled over the coals for this. It just doesn't make sense. You're being partisan in a fashion that is obvious to anyone who's even remotely impartial. So what does it boil down to? Ultimately, it goes back to this, doesn't it? The elites figured that their Russia non-story would be the end of Trump. After spending 3 years and $40 million on that fucking gambit and not being able to find any fucking evidence, they had to concede the fact that he had to stay. They couldn't impeach him because there's no fucking evidence. And funny old thing, that's how we work in the West. You need to have evidence. I still haven't forgiven the cunts for going after Tulsi as well. A serving veteran, a soldier, a patriot, and they go after her just because they can't stand anyone that isn't part of their little cliquey elite. Disgraceful, really. Disgraceful slur on Tulsi Gabbard, that was. Anyway, I had to show this because they finally got a proper lawyer to get a couple of minutes going at the fuckers. And it leads me nicely into my final point, but I'll show you this because I just thought it was a fucking sterling bit of aggressive lawyering by Matt Gaetz. Just check this guy out, he fucking goes to town on him.
Yields back, Mr. Gaetz.
Will the American people also elected Donald Trump to be the president of the United States in the 2016 election, and there's one party that can't seem to get over it. Now, we understand the fact that in 2018 you took the House of Representatives, and we haven't spent our time during your tenure in power trying to remove the Speaker of the House, trying to delegitimize your ability to govern. Frankly, we'd love to govern with you. We'd love to pass USMCA. We'd love to put out a helping hand to our seniors and lower prescription drug prices. It's the will of the people you ignore when you continue down this terrible road of impeachment. Professor Gerhardt, you gave money to Barack Obama, right?
My family did, yes.
4 times?
That sounds about right. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a series of unanimous consent requests.
So, partisan. Definitely, undisputably, and aggressively partisan. Moving on.
Relating to Professor Feldman's work. The first, Noah Feldman, Trump's wiretap tweets raise risk of impeachment.
Gentlemen will suspend.
My time.
We'll take that time.
He's another one that wants sacking, by the way, Nadler. He just talks and he sounds like my fucking 85-year-old grandpa. You know, he's a nice fella, but he shouldn't be in fucking his job anymore. Put him out to pasture. You can tell by the way he talks. He's like a punch-drunk old boxer. Well, except that saggy, flabby waste of skin probably couldn't knock the fucking skin off a rice pudding, could he?
Very well. Very well. Thank you.
Gentlemen may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Feldman wrote articles entitled, "Trump's Wiretap Tweets Raise Risk of Impeachment." He then wrote, "Mar-a-Lago ad belongs in impeachment file." And then Mr. Jake Flanagan wrote in Quartz, "A Harvard law professor thinks Trump could be impeached over fake news accusations." My question, Professor Feldman, is since you seem to believe that the basis for impeachment is even broader than the basis that my Democrat colleagues have laid forward, do you believe you're outside of the political mainstream on the question of impeachment?
I believe that impeachment is warranted whenever the president abuses his power for personal benefit or to corrupt the democratic process.
Did you write an article entitled "It's Hard to Take Impeachment Seriously Now"?
Yes, I did write that
article. And in that article, did you write, hold on, I'm limited on time, sir.
Did
you write since?
So partisan, rabidly, obviously, aggressively partisan.
Since the 2018 midterm election, House Democrats have made it painfully clear that discussing impeachment is primarily or even exclusively a tool to weaken President Trump's chances in 2020. Did you write those words?
Until this call on July 25th, I was an impeachment skeptic. The call changed my mind, sir, and for good reason.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Professor Carlin, you gave $2,000, or you gave $1,000 to Elizabeth Warren, right?
I believe so.
You gave $1,200 to Barack Obama?
I have no reason to question that.
And you gave $2,000 to Hillary Clinton?
That's correct.
Why so much more for Hillary than the other two?
Because I've been giving a lot of money to charity recently because of all of the poor people in the United States.
Well, those aren't the only folks you've been given to. Now, have you ever been on a podcast called Versus Trump?
I think I was on a live panel that the people who ran the podcast called Versus Trump.
On that, do you remember saying the following? Liberals tend to cluster more. Conservatives, especially very conservative people, tend to spread out more, perhaps because they don't even want to be around themselves. Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
So, obviously, obnoxiously, smugly, and irritatingly partisan.
Do you understand how that reflects contempt on people who are conservative?
No, what I was talking about there was the natural tendency, if you put the quote in context, the natural tendency of a compactness requirement to favor a party whose voters are more spread out.
Well,
and I do
Professor,
not have contempt
hold on.
for conservatives.
I'm
and I
very
do not
limited
have
on time,
contempt for-
Professor. And so I just have to say, when you talk about how liberals want to be around each other and cluster, and conservatives don't want to be around each other, and so they have to spread out, it makes people, you may not see this from, like the ivory towers of your law school, but it makes actual people in this country.
That's a good point as well, It makes me laugh how they always go on about the elites when they always are the elites. Always. All these bourgeois lefties, they're never like bricklayers or fucking scaffolders. They're not coal miners from the deep south or loggers. They're always Stanford, Harvard, Yale, law professors, like ridiculously privileged and elite themselves. That's why they love identity politics so much, because this bitch, Prof. Carlin, she knows that she's got no credibility as being a working class gal, because she's just fucking probably paid 300 grand a year and lives in a $2 million house and has got shit ton of money and respect and power and privilege. So she loves saying, oh yeah, well actually, the men are more privileged than me. Doesn't matter if you're a coal mining man, you're still more privileged than me, therefore I can still be one of the cool in group, the oppressed. Yay, me. And then retire back to a castle and fucking eat caviar in a whirlpool like a cunt.
And the president
Excuse
calls
me,
me.
you don't get to interrupt me on this time. Now, let me also suggest that when you invoke the president's son's name here, when you try to make a little joke out of referencing Barron Trump, that does not lend credibility to your argument. It makes you look mean. It makes you look like you're attacking someone's family, the minor child of the president of the United States. So let's see if we can get into the facts. To all of the witnesses, if you have personal knowledge of a single material fact in the Schiff report, please raise your hand. And let the record reflect. No personal knowledge of a single fact. And you know what? That continues on the tradition that we saw from Adam Schiff, where Ambassador Taylor could not identify an impeachable offense. Mr. Kent never met with the president. Fiona Hill never heard the president reference anything regarding military aid. Mr. Hale was unaware of any nefarious activity with aid. Colonel Vindman even rejected the new Democrat talking point that bribery was invoked here. Ambassador Volker denied that there was a quid pro quo, and Mr. Morrison said there was nothing wrong on the call. The only direct evidence came from Gordon Sondland, who spoke to the President of the United States, and the President said, I want nothing. No quid pro quo. And you know what? If wiretapping a political opponent's an impeachable offense, I look forward to reading that Inspector General's report, because maybe it's a different president we should be impeaching.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yeah, that was a tour de force, wasn't it? He's gonna fucking rip the shit out of them. And this is the final point I wanted to make. So, yeah. Look, tons of worse shit than that happened under the Obama administration. Probably dozens of phone calls, hundreds of phone calls, fuck it, that were exactly like Trump's with the president of Ukraine. It's the way politics is. You get little favours here and there. It's not the end of the world. It's not a fucking impeachable offence. But here's the big takeaway point. When these assholes get to the impeachment proper, it goes away from this House inquiry where they can fuck with the Republican lawmakers and lawyers and run things entirely their own way. The game changes. It said, Mr. Trump said Democrats have gone crazy and urged them to move quickly if they're going to impeach him. Senior Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway told reporters, we're ready for a trial. That's when the defence goes on the offence, she said, adding that Republicans look forward to calling their own witnesses. That's the key, calling their own witnesses. Because these fuckers took the piss. When they get the chance to go at them hard, a real trial in the Senate, things are going to go differently. And they might hate Trump to the point where they're not seeing sense anymore. But you can't make a square into a circle, and it's no matter how hard you try. And they've got no fucking chance at all of removing him from office this way. None. Like, they will smash them when they're in court. And that was my point in my initial comment. It's simply this. And the point of this video, they know they don't have anywhere near enough to remove him from office. They know for a fact they aren't. They can't do it. So the only reason they're doing it is because they think it's going to give them a bump in the polls. That's why they're doing it. They think they run it 24/7 on CNN and make Trump look like a cunt. And it'll help them in the polls. But that single thing is what's making me... If Mark Tulsi doesn't get in there, I'll vote for Trump. Out of principle. Because the impeachment of a president is not supposed to be used purely to help give you a bump in the polls. It's fucking disgraceful. You're not supposed to use all the legal channels you can muster just to throw someone out of office because you hate them. If they didn't do any of this shit, I'd be way more on side with the Democrats. It's like, just beat him in the election. Just beat him. Just get to 2020. Nominate a good candidate that's not one of these crusty old millionaire pensioners, and just beat him. But the fact that they've gone for the impeachment route fucking pisses me off. And it was the same with the Russia investigation. They know before they do it what the answer is. They're just doing it because they think it helps them out in the polls, and that's fucking scandalous and disgraceful. To use all the mechanisms of the state to spend taxpayers' money just to help you. It's like a really, really expensive taxpayer-funded party political ad, and I think it's fucking disgraceful. So mark my words, that's what's going to happen. They're not going to be able to remove him from office. And if I know that and you know that, they know that. So they're doing it to get a bump in the polls and for no other reason. And I think it's fucking scandalous. Nancy Pelosi and Ralph Nader and Chuck Shitbag should hang their heads in fucking shame. Because it's making a mockery of all of these mechanisms that are set up. The founding fathers in the first instance, and by others that followed them. All these mechanisms that are set up to make sure that your democracy runs fairly and smoothly are just being abused to make cheap political points and try and make some gains in the polls. And frankly, I think when they get crushed in the trial and Trump keeps his job, it's going to backfire on them. But more importantly than that, I think we should bill the cunts. I think if they know what's going to happen, we should bill the fuckers. They should say, right, all this bullshit's cost us another fucking $20 million. You cunts are on the hook for it. And the most annoying part is they could all afford it. We know they can afford it because they've all been sucking on the public tit for decades. Every one of them. Biden, Pelosi, Nader, Schumer. The lot of them are all multi-millionaires because of us, because of the taxpayers. So coal miners and fucking mechanics are pulling their puddings out every day to throw millions at these fucking weasels. And well done. When I first applied for my American citizenship several years ago, I never dreamed I'd be using my first ever vote for the Republican Party. Never dreamed of it. But it looks like I'm gonna. Look what you made me do, you fucking assholes. Take it easy, folks. I'm off-ski. Oh, I said off-ski. I'll probably get accused of being a Russian bot.